which begs the question, and we promised to get an answer from Barak just as we went into the break. Barak, Israel being held to a different standard to other countries in prosecuting their wars.
I think definitely this is modern anti-Semitism. Modern anti-Semitism is about double standards, demonizing Israel, and disproportionate criticism of Israel. I don't mind if somebody criticizes Israel on a policy basis the way they would criticize any other nation. But, you know, the irony of Zionism is it enabled anti-Semitism to mutate from an ethnic to nationalistic level. If somebody's intelligent and subtle, they won't say, I hate Jews, they'll say, I hate Israel. And as Martin Luther King says, they mean the same thing. But what you said, Chen, about Israel just trying to do better, right, it actually exposes the fact that Israel is a rational Western state. It exposes Israel to the vulnerability that the other side perceives it as not being rational and sophisticated, but weak to be exploited. I remember seeing this documentary called The Fog of War with former US Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara, when he met Khrushchev decades after the Bay of Pigs crisis, and Khrushchev said to him that he was willing to undergo nuclear annihilation, right? And, you know, being Western and being rational, thinking about cost-benefit analysis, he was shocked. McNamara was just shocked. And it's the same here with the Palestinians. For them, death is glorified. It's an ideal. The nationalism is predicated on genocide. So when they see Israel willing to make territorial compromises, which they interpret as weakness, according to game theory, they win and Israel loses.
Which brings us on to a debate between you gentlemen about the two-state solution. Now, it is, as you say, Barak, a pithy phrase. It sounds absolutely fantastic. And it sounds marginally better than the one-state solution, doesn't it? Where Palestinian ideals mean that they move into Israel and eventually a civil war breaks out and then the Jews are pushed into the sea, which would create just over 7 million refugees and, for example, a sort of Holocaust. And yet there are many people in Israeli society, Chen, who support a two-state solution. You're one of them, aren't you, Chen? Even today?
Yeah, absolutely.
But who are the reliable partners? Where's Hamas? They're not reliable partners. Right. They've said again, we're going to do this again, we're going to do this again, and they've done it again in the worst possible way. The Palestinian Authority, they're not elected. They had one election. They won't have another one. 88-year-old Mahmoud Abbas knows that Hamas would win over there, as Barak said with his figures earlier on in the show. Where's this two-state solution, Chen? Where is it?
We spoke about my military service as a humanitarian officer, and I think it gave me a better perspective on Israel, on this conflict, on working with different parties that have conflicting needs and having to serve everyone and trying to make peace. And maybe we'll start with the end. What is the alternative? What is the alternative for a two-state solution? So if we're talking about one-state solution, the question is, are Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza are going to receive equal citizenship? Because otherwise it would be what our derogators are accusing us of, and I don't want Israel to turn into that. Israel is a democracy. I want to keep Israel as a democracy, and I don't think, as Barak said, I mean, we are held to different standards because we are in a different standard of governing and of a free society, and I want Israel to remain a free society, but we can't do it when we still controlling areas where Palestinians live in a different set of rules. And it's not in Israel. Within Israel proper, Israel is, I think, is an example of democracy. Of course, not perfect, has a lot of work to do, but it is a democracy. But yeah, when I'm listening to people on the other side, I keep thinking, they're seeing this in the same way. They're saying, well, you know, like you just said, Abbas has been in power for so long. Yeah, Netanyahu has been in power for so long, even though so many Israelis... He was elected,
though, wasn't he, recently?
Right, of course. Quite different, right?
Yeah.
But the tactic is different. But yeah, I think that there must be alternative. The world needs to come together, and we need to help the Palestinians come out of this victimhood and the idea that they can't ever have a country of their own.
We're going to go to a call in just a moment, but Chen, who is the person across the table on the Palestinian side that's going to negotiate with you and your team on the two-state solution? There isn't one, is there?
there are young Palestinians that I'm hoping are seeing this, and we don't hear them enough. And I think there are. I know them.
You know that there are people.
I know that there are people out there. And just one word. I'm a Zionist. I believe in the right of Jews to our ancient homeland, but I can't advocate for the rights of the national rights of Jews while ignoring another people's right for national self-determination.
May I just interject? I think that you're ignoring the statistics on the Palestinian side by Birzeit University and the Khalil Shikaki polls, which shows heightened radicalization amongst the younger people. I think that, I know that you don't want to occupy another nation, but you're projecting your values onto the other, and your aspiration for peace is an abstraction.
That's Barak Sina, and that is Chen Mazig, and we're being accused of a one-sided view, although we have two very different perspectives on the two-state solution. Let's get a third one in, with Syed in London. Good afternoon, Syed.
Yeah, hello. Hi there. Yes, I'm the one who said that you have a very one-sided panel so far, with an IDF person and with a person advocating that Palestinians don't have a right of statehood.
Well, we believe in... these two gentlemen do have two very different views of the two-state solution, but fire away. Please tell us what you think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think he was quoting at length about this poll of Palestinians. I wish he had the courage to actually quote the poll of the Israelis, who think that the Israeli government is not doing enough and should be using even more firepower against the Palestinians. So the Israeli side is also as radicalized, and that is why they have people who would be classified as fascists in their government. In fact, some of them are actually people who have charges like Ben Gvir for inciting racism. And they are people who are making genocidal comments about how Palestinians are animals and they don't deserve food, water, electricity. So the genocidal commentary coming out from the Israeli top leadership is deeply worrying. And that's why you see thousands and thousands of innocent Gazans being killed in ruthless attacks on literally a daily basis. But for these panelists, that doesn't matter because this is all proportional. I don't know what sense of proportionality these guys believe in. And
so, if you would like me to respond.
Yes, please.
When Israel, no doubt the Israeli electorate has shifted to the right. The reason why it's shifted to the right is when it, after decades of ignoring the genocidal charter that Hamas has, and which is culturally mainstream amongst Palestinian society, suddenly they think, oh my gosh, these people don't want territory, they don't want statehood, they have a zero-sum game genocidal aspiration, and nobody deserves a state. You need to work for a state, you need liberal governance. When you had immediate elections in the in Gaza, it straight away empowered Hamas over a decade and a half ago. When you had immediate elections in Lebanon, you empowered Hezbollah. There is a difference between liberalism and democracy. They're not synonymous with one another. The only thing that is in Western strategic interests is to see liberal democracies take root.
Chen, you're closer to Syed than Barak. What would you like to say?
I mean, I don't think I'm closer to any. Actually, both sides I think have a perspective that I do not share. On the one hand, with Barak, I disagree completely with the premise that because Palestinians are somehow backward or have genocidal aspirations, as you frame it, that they don't deserve self-determination, or that affect in any way their right for a statehood, or that they can't move out of the situation that they're at. And if we're looking at other Arab countries, we see where they are now and how they have progressed, and to the point that we have a peace agreement with Egypt and Jordan and Bahrain. I mean, those countries that we never thought we could reach an agreement with, but we have. And I'm hoping, I know that the public hasn't changed their mind, and I know that the public is very anti-Semitic in Arab worlds. I know it because my mom is from Iraq and my dad is from Tunisia, and they have been kicked out of those countries without anything but the clothes to their back. But I can't, in the same breath, say, okay, this is what happened. Other people don't deserve these rights because of what they believe in.
I never said that the Palestinians are backwards, but you need a multi-generational process of denazification in the Gaza. You're talking about Nazi philosophy that is mainstream. You can't ignore that.
But you hear what he's saying, the caller, he's saying the same thing. He says there's racism on the Israeli side, and he's right about some of the politicians that have made statements like we need to erase Gaza, which is disgusting and abhorrent, but we know it's condemned by the Israeli society. But we have those politicians, and we have radicalized groups within Israel.
You cannot draw an equivalence between the two. Israeli children do not study in their national curriculum if there are 6 Palestinians and you kill 2, how many do you have left? That is mainstream in Palestinian discourse and in their educational curriculum. There is no equivalence between the two.
With that part, I agree, but I think that we need to also be able to see the other side and understand that our view is our view, and this is one of the positions that we have. But they have rights, and they have, and I really disagree, because I think that there is a way to promote human rights, promote equality, and in this land. And the solution is not to say, well, we need to, they don't have a right for a country because they have some anti-Semitic racist ideas. In fact, I think that if they will have a country, maybe that will promote a change.
We'll go to more callers in just a moment. David in Glasgow will be waiting for us. But, in fact, David in Glasgow is with us. Hello, David. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Johnny. Yeah. Listen, I've got a slight issue here with this whole how do we make peace. I had the privilege of looking after my grandchildren yesterday, and the oldest one, who's 9 and a bit, let's call it 10, she asked me the question because we were in a restaurant and she was just happened to glance the headlines of a newspaper. She asked me the question, why is Israel killing their own people? Yeah, because the headline was about the fact that this incident happened.
You're talking about the tragedy of the 3 hostages who were mistaken. Yes.
Correct, yes. Now, this is a 9-year-old just reading this headline, being confused by it, and asking me this very simple question. I couldn't answer that. And when you talk about how do we make peace in the Middle East, the question, how do we get the young people to make peace? Because in simplicity terms, this is my 9-year-old granddaughter was totally confused. Why is this happening? And I just couldn't explain it to her. I just said it was a tragic mistake, but why was it a mistake? And question after question,
It is one of the darkest moments, if not the darkest moment, of very, very dark moments of this war. Chen, perhaps if you could come back on that for David.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, why did this war started? I think that's why it happened. Of course, mistakes happen, and it's tragic, and Israelis have been, the families, I spoke to the families of the people that were killed. I spoke to Iris, the mother of Yotam, and my heart was broken because I was hoping so badly that it's going to be released, and to know that this would happen in the middle of a war zone where Hamas is using hospitals and schools and dressed in civilian clothes, and Hamas terrorists in civilian clothes have detonated suicide bombing vests a few days before that on soldiers, killing soldiers. So soldiers in this situation, I served in the army, I've been to war, I know that it's hell, and I know that there's a fog of war, but it's very telling that the Israeli army has not even used the idea of fog of war, or saying that they're not taking full responsibility or blaming Hamas. They took full responsibility, and I think a society is judged not by its mistakes, but how it's reacting to it. So Israel has took responsibility, and it says that they're going to examine it thoroughly, but it's tragic. There's no way to explain it. But one question is, why are so many people that are such stance anti-Israel voices that have been advocating against Israel's right for the last 2 months now all of a sudden care about those hostages that they said that don't even exist, and now they care about them? It's only because Israel killed them. Otherwise, they wouldn't care. They would say that they don't exist. They don't deserve rights. They've been treated well by Hamas. But it's very telling how all of a sudden there's an interest in those hostages.
That is Chen Mazig. He is a senior fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute, also the founder of that. I'm going to say thank you very much to Barak Sina for your expertise in the first part of the show. Senior fellow at the Henry Jackson Society and associate fellow at the Royal United Services Institute.